We're going to talk about some basics of design, um, and I'm going to type this out. I think that's the easiest way to do this. I'm going to type this out for you so you can write it down correctly. But in your notes, if someone wants you to write at the top of your page, you don't need to put a title or anything if you don't want to, but it's a really basic concept. And I want to make sure that we understand. I ask it to my graphic design 1 kids multiple times throughout the year. Same thing to my graphic design 2 to see if they remember it. And then I do the same thing with my advanced kids to see if they still remember it. If you've had anybody that in your family or something that has been in my class, hopefully they remember it too. And it's really going to be the difference. Let me see if I can type this out fast enough, between fine arts and graphic design. Okay, so a number of you might be artists. You consider yourself artists. You like to create artwork, stuff like that. There's a big difference between fine arts and graphic design. It's really, really simple, but I want us to get our minds to start focused on the design aspect of what we're creating as opposed to just the artistic aspect of what we're creating, okay? So when it comes down to some specifics, fine arts are, I will always consider it works of art that represents the artist, okay? So write down in your notes somewhere on the top of your sheet, somewhere you can keep it and remember it forever. Fine arts are works of art, creations, some might say, that represent the artist. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. I was an art major in college. I majored in painting, and that was my focus in my art major. So I like to paint, I like to draw, I like to be creative with art. And if I were to paint a giant 4-foot by 6-foot canvas, and I put it up in an art gallery, and 30 of you walk in to see what my art looks like. If you walk in, half you say, that's really, really horrible. And some of you are like, oh, that's pretty cool. And some of you are like, wow, it's the best thing I've ever seen. All of it really doesn't matter because I'm trying to represent myself. I'm trying to represent my emotions. I'm trying to represent my ideals, my mindset, whatever. I'm trying to represent me. It'd be nice to have people like what I painted, but it's not really essential to me as an artist, right? Well, how graphic design is different is, I will put, I'll make it more general. I'll put creations. Creations made to please others. So graphic design or designs are creations made to please others. Like I said before, it's a really simple concept, but think about how that transfers over. If you go shopping, you go to a store. You guys shop at malls and stores anymore, or you just everything online nowadays? Well, I guess now it's online, right? But so you go into a store, and there's a big wall, a whole bunch of different shirts. And that's kind of where I used to shop back in the day. Like I go in, right? Still now, I want to go and look at, see what all the designs look like, and then buy a design that I want to wear that I think represents me in some way, right? So I'm going to go look through. Oh, that's a really, really cool design. I'm going to grab one of those. I put it in my cart. Well, at that moment, that design becomes a successful design. Okay. If I am, or say if you are a t-shirt designer, you work for a company, and your boss comes and says, hey, I need to design a t-shirt for me. So you design a t-shirt, you sketch it all out, you put it out, your boss says, it's fantastic. You're like, yeah, I think it's probably the best shirt I've ever designed in my life. Sweet. Put it out on t-shirts, send it out to stores, and you sell like 15 t-shirts across the nation. It's not a good design. I mean, it's mean to say, and it might hurt your feelings, so you think it's the best thing you've ever made, but it's not a successful design because people don't like it. People aren't trying to buy it. Coincidentally, or like on the other hand, if I end up going and ask you of your boss to, hey, throw together a design, you like, oh my gosh, it's super fast, throw it together really fast, you send it out. I say, yeah, it works, whatever, it's not very good, and I put it out there. You're like, I don't think we're going to sell any shirts, and it ends up selling $5 million in shirts and sales. It ends up being a successful design. You might not have thought it was initially, but it was successful. So the difference between fine art and graphic design is that graphic design is really important that you are watching what you are making with intention. As you create designs, as you create logos, as you lay things out, you're trying to engage the viewer. You're trying to make them look at you and say, wow, that's really cool. That's what we like as designers. Personally, it's one of the reasons why I like design a lot. I'm really competitive in that sense. And I like making things that other people like. I like making t-shirts that other people like. I like making designs or paintings where people walk in and say, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And I'm like, yes, I win. So that's kind of the concept we got to get into in a competitive sense when we get into our design, okay? Now, to get into some basic concepts, the first one is usually the first thing that I go over because it's a pretty in-depth topic, but it's really simple to figure out, to see on your own as you walk around and you look at designs, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go into this little presentation that I have put together. Oh, I'm also going to, just to give you all a heads up, I'm going to turn on my closed captioning so I can get my text to pop up. So when we rewatch this later, it'll be easier to transcribe. Okay, so let me share this. 3, 2, 1, and we're good to go. Okay, touching on what I talked about last class also, as we are starting to take ownership of our education, make sure that your phones are off and away or just kind of set aside so we can learn this. A lot of time to play on your phone for the next couple of days. So please write on your note sheet, positive and negative space. Now, some of you may have gone through positive negative space already in your educational career. It's a pretty simple concept, like I said before, but hopefully we'll dive into it a little bit deeper today to help you get a good understanding of what we're going to be talking about. So the positive and negative space are really two main concepts. The positive space, and I'll type this for us so we can make sure we're all writing the same thing and have the same notes. Positive space specifically is, all right, the tangible aspects of design. Okay, so the positive space are the tangible things, the things that you can grab. Another way to think of it is, I'll say it, what the ink makes on the canvas. Okay, so if we're looking at this title that I have here on the paper, or on your screen right now that I'm sharing, the white would be our canvas, it's the background, and the letters on that canvas are our positive space. They're tangible. If those were cut out of wood and laid on a table, they'll be the pieces that we can grab and pick up and kind of hold in our hands, okay? So that tangible stuff is the positive space. Now, to counter, negative space is the emptiness that surrounds or fills the positive space. The emptiness that surrounds, emptiness isn't a word, but the emptiness that surrounds or fills the positive space. So specifically looking at the example we have right here, if I look at the P in the word positive, the P itself, the black aspect, is our positive space. The white aspect, if you can see my little cursor on my screen, the white right here is considered our negative space, that shape. There's also a negative space around the outside, which is like a right angle right here. There's another little negative space, white angle right here. The O's negative spaces here. S has really cool negative space inside these spaces right here, and then the outside. The E also has pretty interesting negative space with little like teaspoon looking shape that's inside right here. So it's really important that as we are getting into the world of design, we are starting to conceptualize and look at the positive space of design and the negative space. A lot of company logos that you're going to see over the next couple months. You're like, oh, cool, that's negative space. Oh, look at positive space here. And it's really going to start kind of opening your eyes to how much it's actually used. Okay. See, we have a positive space, negative space. Okay, we're good to get going. Okay. Interaction right now. I need you to type your answer. Type out the first thing that you see when I show you this next picture. What's the first thing you see? Two faces, two faces, two people, two faces, an optical illusion. Don't cheat, Cole. A candlestick, two people, two faces, a vase, two faces, two faces, two faces, two faces, two faces, a vase. Awesome. Kind of going back and forth now. Oh, a candle holder. Yeah, lampstand, something like that. Okay. So a lot of you have seen this before. You might have played this little game. What we're looking at is a positive and negative space image right now. Okay. If our canvas is black, then the white space is our positive space. So right now, the candlestick that we're looking at is our positive space. Everything else around the outside is the negative space. Now, a lot of you who saw two faces right away means you tend to go towards the darker images first. And so when you saw the dark images, you said, oh, there's a forehead and an eye and a nose and a top lip and a bottom lip and a chin. So there's a face over here and there's a face over here. And that was the first thing that you saw. A lot of you who tend to look really literally at objects saw this white space. That stood out to you first, and you said, oh, it's a candlestick or it's a chalice or whatever. Really, really basic concept that will kind of change your life. As we look at things as human beings, whether it's photography, TV show, cartoon characters, comic books, anything, we are constantly, our brain is constantly doing an association, like faster than anything that you've ever seen in your life. So as soon as we look at that, our brain goes through like a course catalog and tries to figure out all the images that this could possibly be. And it says, no, 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 candlestick. Because your brain wants to figure it out really fast. Or no, 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 two faces looking at each other, okay? And we're constantly doing that over and over and over again. If you can figure that out as a graphic designer, it's really, really going to help you in making successful designs as we go throughout this class, and if you choose to pursue that in the future. Now, having it set up like this makes it a little more difficult to see. Maybe if I switch it like that, it puts a little bit more emphasis on the faces now, because in this version right here, we actually have a full shape. So this is kind of finished out. Okay, I have a bottom, I have a top. So that's a complete image. If I go like this, well, now I don't have the bottom and the top. So as my brain starts doing the association, I see the face here and the face here, and I go, oh, okay, it's two faces. I can then go to this, and now it really looks like two faces because my brain looks at the dark spaces first. So I look at that and say, okay, now it's totally two faces looking at each other because this is just kind of open to this whole background. Positive space, and this vase section or whatever is now full negative space with everything else around it. Okay, the information is really crazy. Really ADD moment for Mr. Reynoso right now. Charlie Brown. If you know Charlie Brown, the cartoon character, one of the reasons Charlie Brown was so relatable is because of what Charlie Brown looked like. Charlie Brown's head was round. Charlie Brown had 2 ears that stuck out, a couple hairs on top of his head, 2 eyeballs, a nose, and a mouth. All really, really simple. If you've seen, somebody did this one time a couple years ago. They did like a real-life rendering of Charlie Brown, and it looked scary. A giant pumpkin-headed human being with like skin texture and stuff like that, and little tiny beady eyes and all that. But the thing about Charlie Brown was everybody could associate with him because for the most part, we all have a roundish head with 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. The only thing that really separated Charlie Brown was that he had a lighter skin complexion. But other than that, people could associate with him because he had 2 eyes, nose, and mouth. Now, if you were to get really detailed with Charlie Brown's eyes, now it starts only associating with certain people. When you start making his face a little bit thinner, now it starts associating with different people. So the more details you put into it, the more you start limiting your general audience, if that makes sense. The reason I point that out is this next slide. When we look at that silhouette on the right, but then we look at the really detailed information full image on the left, now it's kind of harder to see those two faces. You can train yourself to see it, you can look at it, but when I look at the information on the left, I say, oh, okay, it's a candle holder or a chalice or whatever you want to call it, right? We have color, we have value, we have form. I know what that would feel like if I held it in my hand like this, okay? Now you can look at that picture on the left and you can force yourself to still see the two faces, right? I can look right here and I can see this, the chin, the lips, and the nose, and I can look right here and see the same thing, chin, the lips, the nose, forehead, all that. I can see it. It's just harder now because I have way more information going into what my brain is processing, okay? Now, in getting into you guys as designers, the use of positive and negative space can be really, really powerful, okay? Here is the same image used twice. Basically that hand, if we were to say that this is a black piece of paper cut out and laid on a white piece of paper, the artist has gone through and cut out a hand out of black paper. That's the next one. Cut a hand out of black paper, and then out of the excess black paper has cut out the white space that makes the hand show up to whatever the canvas is behind it. If you put a red paper down, it's going to be a red hand. Blue paper down, it's going to be a blue hand. But that's the negative space. So we have a really cool positive and negative space image. One of the most famous positive and negative space images in history is the Asian yin-yang symbol, right? The black shape with the white shape. It's two of the exact same things, but their flow together create one solid image of two pieces forming together. Very similar to what we have right here, okay? Again, we're gonna do a little bit of an interaction. You kind of already saw it, but type what you see here. Ready, go. What do you see? Don't say a candlestick. Adam, thank you. Bears. Two animals hugging. Two bears hugging. Bears hugging. Black bear hugging a white bear. Kind of looks like bears. Two bears hugging. Awesome. Perfect. A bear thing attacked by another bear thing. The void hugging the light. Awesome. Okay, so this is supposed to be two bears hugging. Okay, that's kind of what we're having implied here. As you can see, there's like this kind of white bear creature, like there's another one right here. We can assume that they're similar faces because the eyes are the same size. So as a designer, that's kind of a little trick that they did. By putting the same eye there, it made them both seem like they're the same. We have what we can assume to be hands, arms kind of wrapping around each other. And because of that, we can assume this bear's body continues to go up here. So it's kind of like a big bodied bear, maybe a little stubby ears, maybe it's a bear, you know. So again, our brain is going really, really, really fast trying to figure out what in the world this is we're looking at. Now, if we take our literal brain and we engage that right now, that's not what bears look like. Like, bears don't look at how tiny those legs are. Little tiny stubby legs, and this body is gigantic. It's like the most overweight bear ever in the world, right? But it's not about that because the artist is trying to take what we can associate with what a bear looks like and create an actual bear, okay? Now, let's go even further into that, and let's look at, take your brain, train it to look at only the white space, okay? Don't look at the black at all. Just look at the white space, and now look at what the creature looks like. Like, and this isn't really a trick. I'm not trying to, like, it's not like there's an actual animal there. I'm just showing you, like, how the literal brain can take over and totally change it. It looks like some weird, like, pelican-beaked dinosaur thing, okay? If you think about, like, okay, so here's the eye. Follow me. This is really weird. I know. I understand. Here's the eye. Here's the nose, the little upper lip. Has, like, a huge underbite, like a big pelican beak right here, and someone's feeding it a little something, a grape or something like that, right? So here's its big chin, and there's, like, a turkey gobble neck thing under here, and then there's, like, the rest of its big body with its two stubby legs it stands on. It has a little stubby tail, and it has little spines on the back of it, like a dinosaur, with this big long neck that comes into this giant head, and its two little bear-like ears. Like, it's super weird looking, but the designer knows that our brains are going to associate, okay, and start kind of tying everything together. So that's why it's really important that when you're making your choices that you're going to do when you're doing positive negative space, you have enough information that you're not going to totally confuse your viewer, but that they can associate with it and tie it back in, okay? Now, how does this stuff work into artwork? And I'm really frustrated. This is a gorgeous picture, and it's super pixelated, and I'm really mad that it didn't turn out better. But this is a really, really awesome picture. It's a pencil drawing, okay, of a person. Looks like a girl who is holding her face and kind of like hiding, like shy. A lot of cool emotion in it with the eye. But this would look totally different if the artist chose to show the hands, to actually draw all the skin tone and the shadows and the textures in the hands themselves, okay? By taking that out, it really gives you all of the focus and energy and attention on that one eye, and then the detail in the lips and the nose, which I think is really, really cool. It's a good use of positive negative space as well. We're not working with silhouettes anymore. Now we have, I just saw the Family Guy comment, that's super funny. We are looking at a lot of detail, a lot of information, but with that taking out the hands really focuses you in. We also know that those are hands because the shapes we associate with fingers because they look like our fingers. We look at fingers every single day, okay? And then we understand that if I put my hand like this, I'm gonna have little shadows around my fingers, which is the shadows that we get right along the edges here, which would make it all work really well for us, okay? So art uses positive negative space a lot to put a little more emphasis on certain things. And then when we get into the concepts of designs, it's not just about showing multiple things, but it's about telling a bigger story, okay? Look at this example with a shark. If this is just a picture of a shark, you might be a shark advocate and love sharks tremendously, and you see a picture of a shark, and, oh my gosh, I love those sharks, they're so cute. But when you see this and the silhouette of the empty space inside the shark's mouth is turned into the silhouette of a foot, now this simple image, this simple positive space image is starting to tell a story, right? And the story is just sharks eating a foot, the shark's eating someone's leg, okay? Because that empty space has now been changed right at the very end. Instead of coming to a point where a mouth normally would, they put a little bump in there to look like what we can associate with the silhouette of a foot. And now it's like, okay, well, this is a vicious shark. It's not just some shark swimming in the ocean. This is telling a story of a shark eating somebody. I'm starting to see, like, you know, the movie Jaws pop up in my head. So that's how you can tell a story with really one positive shape or positive space image that tells a bigger story because of how you also tend to utilize the negative space, okay? A lot of times the positive negative space is really easily shown also with just a flip of colors. Now, if this is all negative space, think about all of these shapes being cutouts. This A being cut out of black paper. This little black piece is floating there. So I will refer to this a lot throughout the year, especially when we have like office hours and you come in to check in with me and we have conversations and stuff. I'll say, well, do something different with the negative space. If you look at me and go, I don't know what the negative space is, then that's something we need to address and we need to fix. But if I tell you do something different with the negative space in the G, I'm talking about this space here in that space here. Okay? Now, how this works into some great logo designs. Really, really cool examples for us, okay? The Guild of Food Writers. So a designer sits down and says, okay, I have to design a logo for a food writers guild. Well, what should I draw images of? And they start sketching out a bunch of ideas. Pencils, pens, books, text, maybe an ink pen, a ballpoint pen, an old school, like a thicker pencil, maybe a feather quill, like all these different things we try to like figure out what can represent writing. A typewriter, maybe a computer, a little bit too new, but well, maybe, right? Well, what about food? Start thinking about like specific pieces of food, a pizza, a taco, a bowl of spaghetti. Like, start thinking all that stuff. No, it's too specific. I need something more general. What some use with all food, silverware, okay, forks, knives, spoons, sporks. Start kind of writing out all those different things, and then we start looking through and say, okay, well, how can I work them together? And yeah, exactly what you're saying. They basically took the tip of a fountain pen, the silhouette of a fountain pen that does have a crease in the middle that has a little space to hold ink, and instead of making it a round space with a line down like a fountain pen normally does, all they did was change that negative space image a little bit to look like a spoon. Okay? Now you have these two worlds that are crossing over in this logo simply using positive and negative space, and now the Guild of Food Writers has a logo that says food and says writing, and generally people will be able to associate with that. Okay? Very, very, very cool. Here's another one, a little more complex. Spartan golf clubs. So if you see in this positive space, there's a guy's head with a golf club right here. His arms kind of cocked up because he's swinging the golf club. Here's like his shirt, and it kind of fades off in his lower body. And then there's this like graphic here to show the club swinging, right? Now it's not really a negative space. They just use the positive space in two different ways here. But you see the positive space is also the feather or whatever top of a helmet, along with the eye of a Spartan. His nose is the elbow right here. His mouth is right here. He has a chin. So now it looks like a Spartan and a Spartan helmet. So you have both of them tied in. Really intelligent, really creative way of doing this. Doesn't really use negative space as much as the last one did, okay? But it is still using positive space to show the different aspects of this design. Okay. One of our next project we're going to do, you're going to end up going through this process. You're going to create a logo that represents you, but I'm going to give you guidelines to how you're going to end up creating that logo, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to use the first letter of the last name, the first letter of your last name. So if your last name starts with a C, you're going to use a C. Last name starts with an R, like myself, you're going to use an R. But you're going to be locked into that one. If your last name starts with A and you turn on a project that has a P on it, it's not going to work. You're going to use the actual letter of your last name. So if you're my example right here, and you're a K, we look at this K, and we'll get specific later in terms of talking about typefaces and stuff. But in this K right here, this is what we call a serif K, serif typeface, and it's really thick. There's a lot of space here, a lot of different shapes. And if we're talking about negative space, I mean, look at all the negative space that we have. We have this space up here. There's this space down here. I have that space over there. So it doesn't have negative space like a P has, or it doesn't have negative space like an O, but it definitely has negative space that we can see in all these outside spaces. Also, because of these little extensions here, there's a little negative space chunk in the back. Okay. So with that being said, we have a decent amount of negative space to work with. Now, one thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is when we start adjusting the negative space, we have to make sure, this is something I want you to write down in your notes, when you adjust the negative space of a letter, it has to still be readable. Super important. So when you're adjusting the negative space of a letter, you have to make sure it is still readable. Because I can easily take this K and take this white space and cross it over here to this white space and make these two separate pieces, and now it's not readable anymore because this looks like an I. right? Or if I end up cutting off this whole top here, this doesn't necessarily look like a letter at all, but it might look like a K anymore. It might look more like a lowercase h or something like that. So what this designer did, the designer said, hey, I like this big space. I like this big space. I'm going to adjust these edges and make them a little more curved, and I'm going to go like this. Okay, just two silhouettes. Negative space on the right-hand side is this bird shape. Looks like it's coming down, almost like it's feeding. The negative space on the bottom is a bird with his mouth open, like he's being fed. And then once we do that, we got to look, is it still readable? Well, all of this information right here tells me it's a I, a K, a P, a B, something that has this on the left-hand side. This negative space that I decided not to mess with goes, okay, well, that definitely kicks out to show like it looks like a K. I can see this kind of flows together, so yeah, that can still work. Then this can still work down here. So yeah, it's still readable as a K, especially if it was smaller, all right? And then one of the most famous logo designs ever that has negative space worked into it, you've probably seen this before, the FedEx logo was made intentionally with this arrow between the E and the X to subconsciously show the viewers that we are in constant movement. FedEx is fast. We're always moving forward, okay? So it doesn't have to be a really graphic representation of negative space like this one. It can be very, very subtle, still kind of get the same point across, okay? So I'm now going to go, this is kind of make sure we all understand the basic concepts of positive and negative space. Now I'm going to start writing notes with you guys, and we're going to go through what I'm expecting for our project and what the requirements are and when they'll be due and all that stuff. I will also post this in an assignment, so don't worry too much about it, but I'd like for you to write this stuff down because it's good to process it in your head. Okay, let me do a little bit of finagling here real quick. I need to reload some things. Everybody doing all right so far? Thank you. Okay, cool. Appreciate the head nods. Everybody's still awake. Nobody's sleeping yet, which is awesome. Let's see. I'm going to turn off my camera for a second. Plugged. Okay, sorry, 1 second. I haven't figured out a faster way to do this yet. There we go. Okay, let me share. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my hand on my paper right here. Cool. Okay, good. All right. So what we're going to start doing. Our positive, negative space project. There are going to be 4 aspects. I'm going to write down the 4 aspects. I want you to write them down as well. And then I'm going to go through each one of them specifically, okay? So number 1, each one of these numbers that I write down are also going to be their own individual assignments. So we'll have 4 kind of pre-assignments. We'll have 1 final assignment, and each one of them will be graded on a 5-point scale. But again, like I said last class, they're all really simple. So as I go through this stuff, when I ask you to do something, if you fill it out, show me what I want you to do, you're going to get a 5, we'll be good to go, we'll keep moving on, okay? Start building up that credit really early. Okay, the first thing that we need, you are going to create a word cluster. That word cluster will have 50 words. Okay, I'll go over what a word cluster is, but we're just going to write down our the things first. Number 2. Find 5 words that best describe you. Okay, so you're going to find the 5 words that you feel best describe you. Sketch out an image for each word. And you can do more than one sketch, but at least a sketch for each one of the words that you decide, each one of the 5. Number 4, add an image to the first letter in your last name using negative space. Add an image to the first letter in your last name using negative space. Okay? So those are the 4 things. I'll have it typed out for you in your assignment when it's posted. But to go back to our first one, to create a word cluster, you will get points for this. So this is how the word cluster will end up going. And I'll keep writing. Now I'm going to write with ballpoint pen just because it's a little bit easier. So I still use this process when I'm doing design work to this day. I do a lot of freelance design. I do the design on the side for groups and companies, and I've done a couple company logos and stuff like that. But I usually always start in this process because I always was the kid in school that would struggle with the teacher would say, all right, make something cool. And I'd sit there for an hour and a half like I have no idea what I'm going to do. So my teacher showed me how to do this process, and now I use that with you guys. So when you end up starting to do a design and I say, hey, make something that represents you, you can't say, I don't know anything about me. Like we've actually gone through this process, and you have a lot of words, at least 50, that will associate with you. So what I start with is the main subject in the middle of my note sheet. Okay, you don't have to start it right now, but you can take some notes if you would like to, just to kind of help yourself process it. But what my main subject is going to be me. So I put me in a bubble. You might have seen this before, but this is kind of how I do this in terms of art. And then I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to start writing words that I feel represent my main subject, so represent myself. If I were doing design for a surf brand, my inside word would be surf, and I would go from there, kind of start branching it out, okay? So I have me. So the words that I feel represent me, so I'll start off, I'll make a little line, I'll come out here, and I'll put husband, because I'm married, and I find that's super important to me. Father, teacher, artist, athlete, coach. I can do a lot more. Like musician and some other things too. My kids are coming home right now, so I apologize for any background noise. So I have just those 6 right now, and I could add to them, but I'll just leave it with that for right now. From there, I'm going to start expanding on these ones. So I'll go to father, and I will put from father, I will put compassion is a word I associate with that. Love, rules, because that's kind of my job. I will put from father, I'll put children. Maybe from husband, I will also associate that with the word love. My dog decided my family's home, sorry. I might come to teacher, and I'll put educate, inspire, lessons. And I'm literally just writing the first things that are popping into my head. I'm not going through the process of, oh, well, no, it's not that. Oh, well, no, that doesn't make sense. Oh, well, no, I shouldn't put that, because I'm just writing down anything. I did this one time. I had a kid do this one time. I had him in the middle, and eventually he got to sea turtles. And I was like, how in the world did you get to sea turtles? And he showed me his path, and it was like he got sea turtles from Iron Maiden. So he had the band Iron Maiden was one of his favorite bands, which then extended out into metal, which then extended out into music, which extended to vacations. So the associated music was vacation. Vacations went to Hawaii. Hawaii went to ocean, and ocean went to sea turtles. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a crazy path. But it's all about just kind of the random thoughts that are coming out that are jumping through everything. So I gotta kind of keep going like this. I'm gonna build this up to more and more and more. Every class that I do this, I have a kid say, no, so I don't have anything. I'm like, what are you going to do when you get home? I'm going to play video games. Okay, cool. What console are you going to play it on? PS4. Okay, cool. So write that down, PS4. Okay, what do you need to play video games? Controller. Cool, right? Controller. Awesome. Okay, now what do you need? What's on the controller? Buttons. Awesome, right? Buttons. What kind of buttons? Triangle, square, X, circle. Okay, write those down. So it's going to keep branching it out, but it's kind of a constant stream of thought. Now, we said already, where's my paper that I had? First thing to do is create your word cluster with at least 50 words. So what you're going to do for the assignment is you're going to create your word cluster. And then to turn it in, you're going to take a cell phone, your computer, the camera in your computer, whatever, but you're going to snap a picture of it, and then you're going to load that to your Google Classroom, and that's turned in. Awesome. 5 points. Done. Okay? Make sure you have your 50 words. Make sure they represent you. That's good to go. The next step is to find 5 words that best describe you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pen. I use the same pen or a Sharpie, whatever, and I'm going to go, okay, and I would use different words. I'm just trying to make this fast for you. I'll go like number 1. Inspire. I'll go children's, number 2. I'll go athletes, number 3. I'll go compassion, number 4. And then artist is number 5. Okay? I'm going to take a picture of that. I'm going to post that to the 5 words that best describe you assignment. And now I have that part turned in. All of that can happen really, really quickly. I'm talking like that's 30 seconds and I've finished 2 assignments right there, okay? Now I need to sketch out images for each word. This one can get a little more difficult because I don't want you to be super predictable with what you're doing. Like love, I'm gonna sketch out an image for love. It's a heart. Well, yeah, okay, well, we can kind of associate a heart with love, but maybe try to think a little bit deeper. We're designers now, okay? We're not just kids trying to create stuff, we're designers. So what you do is try to see another way you can represent love. Maybe Think about the bears hugging. Maybe you have like arms that are hugging each other, or people holding hands, or holding a baby, or just whatever you can think of. But an image that is love. Another image that's compassion. Another image that's inspire. Artist and athlete. In my case, once I get all 5 of those drawings all done, take a snap picture of those 5 and send that to the sketch out an image for each word. And the last one, the add an image to the first letter of your last name using negative space. That's where we start getting creative. Okay, so I'm going to throw this together really, really fast because we're almost wrapped up with class. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm going to use an R that represents Reynoso, I'm probably not going to use an R like that. Okay? Because if you know me at all, that's kind of a skinny, tiny, frail looking green bean of an R, right? And I am a larger, thicker, stronger being than that. I'm louder, I'm a little more expressive than that R is. So if I'm going to use an R to represent me, then I'm probably going to go like something like that. That's more of like a Reynoso R. So when you're trying to figure out the letter you're going to use, it's important too to figure out, you want to try to represent yourself in this. Now, as we talked about before, I have negative space now here, there, and then I have negative space all around the outside of this to mess with to try to add one of my images that I've done. This is one I did for my last class, okay? So say I have like heart, weights, a whistle for coaching, a football, a pencil, a paintbrush, like whatever, right? So in this negative space, how am I going to still show an R and have the negative space used correctly? Understand, to show me that you know what negative space is and what positive space is, you aren't building an R out of images, okay? If I were to come here and go, and draw a pencil, and then I'm going to draw a boomerang, and then I'm going to draw a paintbrush. Yes, that is an R, fantastic, but that's not an R in negative space. That's not an R utilizing the negative space. That's an R built out of 3 different objects. Okay, so this is not what we're doing, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to show myself in this R. So what if I did something like this? Okay, I have some negative space down here. Okay, so I still have my anatomy of an R. Now I have my negative space in the middle that I'm going to mess with. So I'm going to go like this. Now I have a paintbrush, right? I have a paintbrush, shows artistic. I have my R, and notice how I didn't close anything off. So it's not a paintbrush drawn inside of the R. It's if I were to color all this in, I'm not going to waste my Sharpie right now, but if I were to color all this in, the R would be the solid positive space, and then the white is the negative space. Another way that might help you, some of you do this and figure this out correctly, is you should be able to cut this out of a piece of paper when you're all done and go stick it somewhere. You should make it a solid sticker and put it on something, and it'll be like a silhouetted image like that with positive, negative space. Okay? So once I have that finished, I'm going to come through and I'm going to snap a picture. I'm going to turn that in. Now, here's the difference with our 4 assignments. This one, pen that. This one is pretty simple. Okay? If you do that, you get 5 points. I mean, if you turn in like 20 words, you're not going to get 5 points. You'll get like 2 points. But if you turn in your 50 words, you'll get 5 points. You highlight 5 of those words, turn that in, you get 5 points. You sketch a layout and visual representation for each one of those 5 words, you get those points. This one, you will actually get graded on based off of how well you use your, I'll write that here, how well you show you understand positive, negative space concepts. Oh, that's really blurry. How well you show you understand positive, negative space concepts. That's what you're being graded on. So if you turn in this, I'm going to give you a 2. Now, like I said yesterday, that 2 isn't going to be set in stone. I'm going to give you a 2, and I'm going to write, hey, remember the example that I gave? You just built an R out of objects. We need to find how you put the negative space in there. You say, oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. And you go back and you redraw it, and then you send it to me. Okay? I will most likely critique you. If you do something that looks pretty good, it's negative space, but it just isn't really clean, it looks like you drew it in 5 seconds, kind of like I did, then I'll probably say, hey, this is a 3 right now, just because I think you put a little more time into it. Finish it up a little bit, maybe use a roller, draw something down a little bit nicer, and then turn it back in for your 5. Okay? But that'll be your more critical turn-in. Okay? All right, let me turn this off and turn my camera back on. Stop sharing. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Okay, so the assignment will be posted later today. It will be due. This is going to take days, so don't worry about kicking out tonight. It will be due on Sunday night. So we'll get going on Monday into something new. I'm not planning on you needing Saturday and Sunday to work on it, but it will be available for you if you need it. You should be able to finish this Thursday and Friday in class time. Okay, an hour on Thursday and an hour on Friday should be more than enough time to be able to kick it all out and get it done. So don't worry about using other class time. Don't worry about even using your study hall time tomorrow or anything for it. It'll be due on Sunday night. Any other questions you guys have off the top of your head right now that I didn't cover? Yes, it can be done on a piece of paper. We're not worried about computers yet. It'll definitely be done on a piece of paper, just like I did, just a little nicer. Make it look like you're going to turn in your piece of paper to me. Okay, and you want it to look something nice, so you can put it up on your Instagram or post it and not be embarrassed of it. So make something that's good, that represents you. No, it doesn't have to be colored. Great question. I want it black and white. I would like it colored in. So like I said before, with that R that I didn't color in, I want to take the pen and go color it in, get a thick Sharpie or a magic marker or whatever, and actually color the whole thing. So I can see what your positive space is, I can see what your negative space is. Should put a name and yeah, you can do that. You can put your name there. You can put your name with me. Thank you, honey. My daughter's here. Yeah, so that's all we got. Hey, thanks so much for today. I appreciate it. Yeah, everything can be on the same paper. That's totally fine. And look for the assignment to be posted later today. We will have a check-in tomorrow. Our check-in the same time at 11 o'clock, but we'll just do a quick check-in and then have the rest of the time to kind of do what you want to maybe start the project and get everything else going. All right? That's all I got. Check it out. See you guys later.